Hello, everybody, and welcome to a tropical update here. This is a wide view of the Atlantic right now. As you can see, really only one main game in town here, and that's, of course, Hurricane Delta here. And this is, of course, satellite imagery over the past 3 hours here of how the storm's progressed here with time. And you can see, probably not well in this imagery, but you probably will be able to see it a little bit better on here. This is the visible infrared imagery here, and you can see just how the storm's progressed pretty much throughout the past 24 hours here. You can see it rapidly intensifying there in the beginnings of the visible imagery there, and then as the sun sets, the storm starts to slow down its intensification phase here. And now, uh, the storm is weakened from a 145 mile per hour Category 4 down to 130 mile per hour Category 4 storm, but still a Category 4 storm, regardless, and still a storm to take seriously here, regardless if it decides to continue to decrease in intensity here, lower in intensity, or decides to maintain its intensity for the time being until landfall. Still a serious situation for the Yucatan, and of course also later on down the line for the Gulf Coast United States, wherever the storm decides to ultimately make landfall at. And you can see in this latest forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center as of Tuesday, October 6th, 2020, center is currently located at 19.5 degrees north, 85.1 degrees west. Again, the center is currently located at 19.5 degrees north, 85.1 degrees west. Maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour, making this a Category 4 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Moving to the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. So this latest update as of 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, advisory number 10 here, as you can see. And the National Hurricane Center, of course, have hurricane warnings in effect for most of the Yucatan there, the northeastern Yucatan there, and then also, of course, tropical storm warnings in effect for the areas that are going to be affected by the outer tropical storm force winds radius from this storm. And then, of course, they also have tropical storm warnings in effect for all of the island of Cuba, and then parts of western Cuba there. But I imagine it's probably going to be taken off soon as the storm continues over towards the Yucatan here, perhaps making a landfall. From what the current thinking is, at least around maybe sunrise local time there tomorrow morning. And you can see what this forecast going here. Let me go ahead and put on the full forecast here, actually. You can see what this forecast cone, the National Hurricane Center forecast the storm to be a major all throughout its life in the Gulf of Mexico here, unfortunately. And they forecast to make a secondary peak here in the Gulf of Mexico as a 130 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane, like it is right now, due to some really warm sea surface temperatures in the southern Gulf of Mexico and really favorable conditions in the southern Gulf of Mexico. However, that being said, once the storm moves over towards the northern Gulf Coast here, it should encounter some increasing wind shear along the coastline, and then also, of course, lowering and dropping sea surface temperatures as well, which should put a hamper on the intensity of the storm when it makes landfall. Of course, how strong it'll be when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico and how strong it'll peak in the Gulf of Mexico is going to be a key factor here, and determining impacts there and determining the impacts here of this storm, regardless though of how fast it weakens, or if it weakens at all, or maintains its intensity at landfall. Still does not discount that this is a serious storm here for the Gulf of Mexico, and the Gulf Coast need to be taking this storm seriously. Um, Regardless of it, say if this storm maybe weakens from 130 miles per hour to maybe 115 miles per hour in the span of 24 hours at about landfall, wherever it decides to make landfall, that is still a significant storm we're talking about here, and not want to take lightly at all. Um, and especially when it gets to the Gulf of Mexico, the National Hurricane Center are forecasting the hurricane to increase in size here. So the hurricane force wind radius is forecast to expand some, and also the tropical storm force winds radius is also forecast to expand some here as it enters the Gulf of Mexico after passing over the Yucatan here tomorrow morning. And here's a look at the infrared imagery of a GOES 16 here, and you can see how the storms progressed over the past 3 hours here, and tried forming an eye earlier today, but kind of just failed in doing so due to some unexpected, a little bit moderately strong wind shear of, I believe, I think it was 15 or 20 knots, if I'm not mistaken, that has been put in a cap per se on how strong Hurricane Delta could get for at least the time being here. Now, it remains to be seen if the storm decides to either maintain its intensity till landfall in Yucatan here, or decides to maybe pull a Sally here and try to intensify a little bit more before it makes landfall ultimately here. But a little bit better news compared to what we were thinking earlier this afternoon. And actually the last full forecast from the National Hurricane Center, they're forecasting 155 mile per hour high end Category 4 landfall over the Yucatan here, but now they're forecasting around a 130 mile per hour Category 4 storm, which still is a storm to be taken seriously here. I want to really stress that here, just because the storm weakened from 155 to 130 miles per hour at expected landfall here, at forecast landfall intensity, I should say here, does not mean you need to be stopped. You need to stop taking, your hurricane preparations and stop taking this hurricane seriously here. This is still a serious and potentially deadly hurricane we're looking at in front of our screen here, unfortunately. And then here's a look at the water vapor imagery of Hurricane Delta here, and you get to really see how much of a good environment the storm is, aside from that wind shear that's impacting the storm. You can see how much of a favorable environment it's in, and it's going to be heading into actually still when it enters the southern Gulf of Mexico here. And again, really only damper that at least we think of right now that may hamper the storm is when it gets farther into the northern Gulf Coast near landfall, wherever it decides to make landfall. The sea surface temperatures are forecast to drop a little bit from what they are now, and then of course wind shear is forecast to be near the coastline here as well, wherever it decides to make landfall. So those are two inhibiting factors for the storm. How strong it gets into the Gulf of Mexico and how strong it peaks in the Gulf of Mexico are still key things we still need to figure out here. And when we find that out, we'll of course get a better grasp of what Delta is going to be doing here. But still, regardless, say if it weakens from a 130 mile per hour storm to maybe say a 115 mile per hour storm at landfall, that's still a significant storm here. And if it does it, say within the span of maybe 10 hours or so, still we could see impacts like that of a Category 4 intensity storm here. So don't just necessarily say think just because maybe the storm may be making landfall a little bit weaker as a Cat 3, like the National Hurricane Center forecasted for the Gulf Coast, that you need to stop taking this hurricane seriously. Don't do that at all whatsoever with this storm. And here's some more imagery of the storm here, and I get to see again a little bit better what I mean by just how kind of favorable the environment it's going to be heading into in the Gulf of Mexico, at least here, it looks like. So that's why the National Hurricane Center forecast the storm to make a secondary peak at a 130 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane in the southern Gulf of Mexico before it heads into those cooler sea surface temperatures along the coast and higher wind shear values along the coast as well. Also, quickly before I go to the other storms, I want to take a look at the key messages here for Hurricane Delta. I can, of course, stop the video right now and read it if you want to. And that's the English version, and then here's the Spanish version as well if you want to stop the video right now and read that if you want to. I'm not going to read it because it's going to probably take another 20 minutes or so for me to read that, to be honest. And then here's the rainfall graphic from the Weather Prediction Center Naked City forecast, generally about 6 inches or more to happen. And of course, locally higher amounts are possible with hurricanes like this. But fortunately, since the storm was forecast to speed up, unlike what Hurricane Hannah and Hurricane Sally have done this season, it's forecast to be speeding up at landfall here. Hence why I'm stressing here that no matter how much it weakens here, whether it be from say again 130 to 115 at landfall, still is a serious situation here. And just because it weakens from a Cat 4 to a Cat 3 does not mean again that you need to stop taking this hurricane seriously. And then going over to the other basin here, the Eastern Pacific here, Maria has turned into a post-tropical cyclone. Against no threat at all to anybody along the coastline or any land areas. It's really only a threat for any boaters or marine interests that happen to be in the immediate area where the storm is. And you can see what the storm looks like on satellite imagery here. Really kind of a no-brainer here why the National Hurricane Center degraded this to a post-tropical cyclone now in this newest update. And then now, here's the forecast cone for newly formed tropical storm Norbert and the East Pacific as well. Forecast to kind of meander around the same general region till about Wednesday or Thursday there when it starts to get a move on to the northwest here. Right now, it's currently moving to the north-northwest at 1 miles per hour. What the maximum sustained 1 minute winds estimated to be at 50 miles per hour. Forecast to peak as a 65 mile per hour tropical storm. Unfortunately, stay out to sea and really affect no one except any boaters and marine interests that are going to be in the immediate area of this storm here. And he gets here. You can see here's the satellite imagery of the storm right now, and not really looking too good here. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe perhaps if the convection doesn't refire, the National Hurricane Center weakening their peak intensity forecast for that storm. And here's a look at the forecast cone for tropical storm Chanham, currently going on over Western Pacific right now. Chanham currently has 60-knot winds, which is about 70 miles per hour, making this a high-end tropical storm on a Saffir-Simpson scale. And Chanham is forecast to peak as an 80-knot high-end Category 1 typhoon here. And that's about 80 knots is roughly about, I think, 90 or 92 miles per hour, give or take. So that makes it a high-end potent Category 1 typhoon. And looks like the forecast cone either has the storm making landfall over Japan or maybe just getting really close, a little too close for comfort for Japan here before eventually racing on off to the northeast here and eventually weakening and probably dissipating past about the 12th of October, it looks like. And here's infrared imagery of tropical storm Chanham here. And like I said on the last stuff, this is a pretty big system here, hence why the Joint Typhoon Warning Center aren't really predicting any rapid intensification or really strong, quake intensification, I should say, with this system here, is because of just how kind of wide the storm is. And usually, of course, when you get big storms like this, it usually takes them a while to get going here and intensify here. They're not like tiny compact storms like Delta, where they could, instantly, probably in some cases, literally with a snap of a finger, rapidly intensify from, say, 100 miles per hour to 140, and then it could just as easily go back from 140 to 100 miles per hour. So they're really unpredictable, smaller storms, but bigger storms like this are a little bit more easier to forecast here, since they're a little bit kind of gradual intensification. They usually gradually intensify here is what I mean to say with big storms like this. And remember to get official information from the National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service for the latest on Hurricane Delta here. Of course, they have a little header right here that say review the latest on Hurricane Delta here. But of course, for the National Weather Service for localized forecasts, click on weather.gov here, this National Weather Service, or this NWS here, and you'll get the latest on what's currently going on for this storm. And of course, they have a little feed here where they give you crucial information as well, so you could be in the know how with the storm here. And say you live maybe in Beaumont, Texas, click over here. It'll take you to the latest forecast office in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and it'll give you all the crucial information you need to know ahead of this system here. If you're going to be impacted by it, or if you have any friends or family that are going to be impacted or in the path of this storm. So say maybe you live in Cameron, Louisiana, click Cameron, Louisiana on this map here. It'll give you a 5-day graphical forecast, and below that a 7-day text forecast. And even further gives another map here, so you can zoom in and out anywhere in the 50 states in the United States here and get a closer look of things to come for your area. They also have a little search bar here, so you could also put in a zip code or put in the nearest city or town name near you to also get the latest forecast for your area. And they also even have a useful feature here, an hourly weather forecast here, so you can plan your day out hour by hour here ahead of this storm here, as you have a few days to prepare for this storm. And here's the forecast discretion. The public advisory has it say for this storm, Hurricane Delta here again. And you can stop the video right now and read this if you want to. But that's just pretty much summarizing what the National Hurricane Center forecast for Hurricane Delta to do. And that's pretty much going to be about it for this tropical update here. I apologize for kind of the hurried nature of this video here. If you guys, of course, have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability here. And summarization here, keep a close eye on Hurricane Delta here throughout the next 3 hours, regardless if it either maintains its current intensity here of 130 miles per hour, decides to continue to weaken at landfall. Doesn't matter regardless. This is still a serious storm here for the Yucatan here, and one not to take lightly at all. And hopefully everybody has finished or is really close to finishing the hurricane preparations along Cancun and areas surrounding that for this dangerous Hurricane Delta here heading for the Yucatan here. And of course, later on, it's going to be heading into the Gulf of Mexico as well, and poses a threat to the Gulf Coast here, the United States here as well. Past that time, you guys have enough time to prepare for this storm. Make sure you're listening to local officials, National Hurricane Center, and National Weather Service for the latest information on these storms. And then I have all the links down below if you guys want to check into the video description here. I have all the links down below if you want to get informed and stay up to date on the latest official information here on this storm and any other storms that happen to form throughout the remainder of this hurricane season here. And again, hope everybody has a great day, and wherever you guys are, stay safe, of course. And till then, see you guys in the next video. Peace.